Dwayne. I'm sitting here watching fair use copyright, fair use copyright. I'm sitting here watching this video of Iran and Israel, and man, I ain't never seen Israel hit like this. Man, Iran, I don't see no defense or nothing. Wow. I was like, wow. Man, the world is turned. The world is different now. I've never seen the land and devastating conditions in. Wow. I haven't been keeping up with the news as of late. I've been on a push. Gotta pay them bills. But when I do get the time to watch the news, I watch the news. And what I seen was wow. We gotta pray for the world. I was just reading the Bible. I was talking about the end times and wars and things of such. What was I just reading? I was just in the Bible. I stay in the Bible. And I made a few posts on Facebook. I was listening to Julius Malema, EFF in Africa, South Africa, and Jew by bloodline, not religious conversion or none of that. And I'm like, yeah. And as the narrator was explaining, there's certain names that he used that shows that he's connected and is written in Jewish law and it's in the information that's out there as it was made known to the world. And you can't refute it because those tribes connect to the lumber and other tribes. And I'm like, okay, we know that's documented. Anyway, check this out. Iran and Israel. Mm-hmm. You never seen that place look like that. That's great. Yeah.
During the interview in Telephone Feed, Benjamin Netanyahu was suddenly shocked by the collapse of a building due to an Iranian missile attack. The explosion was so close and his face clearly showed fear that he could not hide. In the midst of the heating up of the Iran-Israel conflict, Netanyahu's appearance in an open area without...
Why would he be out there like that? I know how people feel about it, but just think about it. I'm the leader of this nation, and we at war. I wouldn't be walking around the streets like that. I don't see no vest, no nothing like.
Maximum protection was a risky decision. Moreover, he had just come out of hiding, which could very likely be the target of an attack. This moment on the side of the figure who had been known as tough and controversial. He who was thought to be behind the many casualties turned out to be very afraid of facing the threat of death itself. The suffering due to the war that is now being felt by Israeli citizens began in Batum, a city located south of Tel Aviv. That was where the first missile from Iran landed. a retaliatory attack that hit directly without being intercepted by the Israeli air defense system.
Hmm.
Sirens panicked and ran to the bunker. Everyone wanted to survive the threat that ironically was triggered by their own leader.
Wow. That's
Fire
scary.
began to spread from the building that was hit by the missile, and firefighters stepped in, risking their lives to put out the flames. Once the siren stopped, residents slowly came out of their shelters. But what they witnessed was truly shocking.
Mm.
The tall buildings that once stood majestically were now just a few points.
Mm.
Iran's attack last night flattened 61 buildings, injured 200 people, and killed 5 others. Some residents almost collapsed, realizing how much destruction had just occurred.
Wow.
On the same night, tragedy also befell a family in the Tamar settlement. 4 people, a mother, her 2 daughters, and a female relative died when a ballistic missile hit their house. The deaths came so quickly in a country that is paying dearly for the decisions of a leader. And now the question is, who should be held responsible for all this? There is one irony that cannot be ignored. Now Israeli citizens are starting to feel what the people of Gaza have been experiencing.
Wow.
Like in Ramadan, where residents' houses were targeted by Iranian counterattacks. Several cars were burned down and 3 houses were badly damaged.
Mm.
According to city authorities, 9 buildings were completely destroyed and hundreds more were damaged to varying degrees.
Mm.
To flee their homes, a scene that has long been synonymous with Gaza and is
Dang.
now starting to become a reality in Israel. Maybe it's time to ask whether Israel has finally felt what it's like to lose a home, a sense of security,
Man,
and a
what
life like
kind
the
of
people. Resident Sean
some of y'all commentary be kind of strong? I understand. Let me shut up. That's crazy.
Leanne was also not spared from panic.
Wow.
After Iran announced that it would launch a retaliatory attack, one of the ballistic missiles fired from Tehran hit a residential area in the city.
Wow.
Several houses were badly damaged and residents were forced to run to shelters. 2 people lost their lives in this incident. Meanwhile, 17 others managed to survive.
Wow.
Although many of them returned home injured, tensions also rose in Petah Tikva. Footage from the TV session showed the moment when a ballistic missile hit a 20-story building.
Dang.
Residents tried to save themselves as quickly as possible. However, 4 lives remained unsaved.
Oh.
What made it all the more heartbreaking was the identity of one of the victims, Ivan Ivanovich, a Holocaust survivor who survived the war before, but was unable to survive the war today. Then Brad, Iranian attacks again hit residential areas at night. The missile explosion caused several houses to be damaged and one person was declared dead from the impact. No one expected that night could turn so tense. However, the most terrifying tension occurred when the sirens blared in telephone feed. That night, the sky was filled with flashes of light from the Iron Dome defense system that desperately tried to hold back the waves of Iranian missiles. But even that sophisticated technology was not able to block everything. One of the missiles managed to penetrate the system and hit a building, sending a clear message that this attack was not over. The Israeli government had tried to limit media coverage of the damage caused by the war.
Wow.
However, it was its own citizens who spread footage of the conditions on the ground,
Wow.
showing how much suffering they had to endure due to the war triggered by their own leader.
I get out of there. Man, that is crazy. Look, I will get up out of there, get out of there with the quickness, fly out of there quick, run to the boat, can't go to Egypt.
These
They
videos,
have
they
war
wanted
with
to convey
Egypt.
a clear message.
They'll
War
stand
only
up for
brings
Egypt.
suffering to ordinary people. Even several skyscrapers in Tel Aviv looked horribly destroyed after being hit by Iranian missiles, emphasizing that the losses suffered by Israel could not be considered small. One of the aerial footages showed a badly damaged building with dozens of cars around it that were also destroyed. Strangely, the Israeli authorities claimed that there were no casualties in the incident. This statement certainly raises a big question mark. Is it true that there were no casualties, or is Israel deliberately covering up the truth? The suspicion grew stronger when seeing the scale of the damage caused. In another video, tall buildings are clearly visible that are heavily damaged. Some are even still burning from the Iranian ballistic missile strikes. A car is seen completely burned to nothing. With such destruction, it is hard to believe that there were no casualties. So, is it possible that the government is trying to hide the real facts from the world? Man, that's crazy. Regardless of whether there were casualties or not, one thing is undeniable. The damage caused by Iran's attacks is now on par with the destruction that Israel once caused in Gaza. One example of this recently occurred in Tel Aviv when a building was completely destroyed after being hit by a ballistic missile from Tehran. Dang. Not only that building, several surrounding buildings were also destroyed. Dang. It must be admitted that Tel Aviv is indeed the main target in Iran's retaliation. In the circulating footage, it can be seen how missiles hit the city again, forcing residents to run in panic to the bunkers, leaving their cars and belongings behind. Dang. Some people who remained even managed to record the seconds when the attack hit their city. It didn't stop there. The latest attack targeted the city of Beersheba. Damn! The missiles fired by Iran caused major damage, sparked fires, and hit various buildings and vehicles. 4 people were reported killed and 20 others were injured. This attack is clear evidence that Israel's air defense system completely failed to intercept the Iranian attack. This time, an important lesson from this series of events is that Netanyahu is too confident. Confident about what? The success of Israel's air defense system in thwarting Iranian attacks on Operations True Promise 1 and 2 made him feel invincible. What? But Iran has now turned the tables. They have succeeded in showing that Israel's defenses can be penetrated and even paralyzed. Ironically enough, in the interview, Netanyahu had said that his son Akner's wedding was postponed for the second time because of the war between Israel and Iran. And it is natural, because if there is a party to blame for the delay, it is none other than his own father. Netanyahu, who triggered the escalation by ordering an attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. Even though at that time Washington and Tehran were at the negotiating table. Public anger was inevitable. Many considered Netanyahu to be inappropriate because he was more concerned about his son's postponed wedding. Meanwhile, dozens of Israelis were killed and thousands more were injured due to the war he himself triggered. Juxtaposing a private family event with mass suffering certainly raises the question of where the empathy is. Yeah. You deserve. That's why I try to warn black people. Hey, that's all you talk about is the Bible, Wayne. That's all you're gonna be talking about pretty soon when you realize these ain't your leaders. And how they gonna turn on you. We see it. That's unfortunate what's happening to them people. That's crazy. But you know how it is. You don't choose this day, God or man. I'll tell you something, I choose the most high. I don't care what y'all say. And don't fight. It ain't gonna be they fight. Dang. I ran. That's wild. Whew. Anyway, peace and blessings, family.
What can this man say? Yemen Houthi. Oh, crap. Yeah.
Jeez. The Houthi leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi denounced Israeli airstrikes, calling them an attempt to pressure Yemen into abandoning its stance on the Palestinian cause. Listen.
Wow.
Regarding the Israeli aggression on Sana'a airport today, which comes within the context of the ongoing in Syria,
They
it also
steady
means
hitting people
concerning our
like.
country to pressure the honorable stance of our dear people and our nation's principled position in supporting the oppressed Palestinian people.
The Israeli military says the strike was a
Wow.
direct response to missile launches by Houthi forces. The previous day, it added the destroyed aircraft was used by the Houthis in operations against Israel. On May 6, Israeli airstrikes destroyed three aircraft in a separate attack, bringing the total number of aircraft lost to four. The runway, only recently repaired, is again out of service. The Houthis remain undeterred in their support to Palestinians, but added Israel may attempt to hinder the transportation of pilgrims for the Hajj pilgrimage.
The Israeli enemy may include trying to hinder the transportation of pilgrims for the Hajj pilgrimage. However, God willing, they will fail in all of this. Our stance remains steadfast. The repeated restoration of the airport is necessary to ensure the continuation of operations, whether for transporting pilgrims, patients, or travelers.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, meanwhile, has vowed to continue striking back as long as the Houthi forces keep launching attacks on Israel.
Move to West Asia now. The Israeli army says it has intercepted a missile launched from Yemen, while Houthi rebels have claimed an attack targeting Israel's main airport.
Hmm.
As loud booms were heard in the skies over Jerusalem, the Israeli army said following the sirens sounded in several areas in the country, a missile launched from Yemen was intercepted. The interception followed another day before that was claimed
Hmm.
by
Hmm.
Iran-backed rebels. While Houthi military said the group's missile force carried out an operation targeting Ben Gurion International Airport near Tel Aviv.
The missile force of the Yemeni armed forces carried out a military operation targeting Lod Airport in the occupied area of Jaffa using a Zulfikar ballistic missile. The operation successfully achieved its goal.
In Gaza, the Israeli military issued an evacuation order for residents of several western parts of Khan Yunis, asking them to move immediately to al-Mawasi, saying Hamas was operating in those areas.
There's so much going on over there right now. Like they're talking about people seeking aid and being shot and resisted. Like, are you serious? And I mean, there are many news channels running this daytime, nighttime, round the clock. I'm like, wow, this is something else. Here, your nation being destroyed and you bombing other nations. Like, I understand you have to show force. There's a way to show force. Once you send ground troops in, you know what I'm saying? To quell those armies and get it over with. Why just steady prolong and drag? What I've seen, I wouldn't wish on nobody. But I understand. But to just keep bombing other nations and you're at war with one nation, I guess y'all just gonna be the pivot, kick it all off and get it going. World War III, because that's what it looked like you're aiming towards. And that's crazy. And we're not untouchable. These people are their friends. They give them the manpower. They give them the muscle, weapons, and cash for this shit. Like, are you serious? You need to stop. You need to divest. Yeah, keep them strong where they can protect themselves, but they need to stop dropping bombs on people because it ain't looking good for them. It's really not looking good for Israel. Iran cracking them straight, sunning their
Sean
ass.
Gaza says at least 4,201 people have been killed.
Now the Houthis striking like, let's get back. That's wild, son. What's that? What happened
This claimed to have fired a
there? Leon,
hypersonic
what y'all
ballistic
on?
missile at Israel's Ben Gurion airport near Tel Aviv.
Oh my God. Wow.
Israel claimed that its air defenses successfully intercepted ballistic missile launched with Israel. The missile set off sirens across central Israel, sending thousands to bomb shelters. The attack
Yeah.
also briefly halted the final of the Israel State Cup being held in Tel Aviv. The Houthis declared the operation a success and said that it forced millions of Zionists into shelters and disrupted air traffic.
Police reports of the Yemeni armed forces carried out a military operation targeting Lot Airport, Israeli named Ben Gurion Airport, in the occupied area of Jaffa, using a hypersonic ballistic missile. The operation successfully achieved its goal, thanks to Allah, forcing millions of occupying Zionists to flee to shelters and halting air traffic at the airport.
Houthi rebels reiterated their support to Palestinians until Israeli aggression.
May. Wow. Everything is about them. Assad commanded killed. Iran refused to make peace with Palestine. Wow. There you go. I thought they was stopped.
Iran officially decided not to play at the ceasefire table.
Oh wow. Fair use copyright. Fair use copyright. See, they missiles, they not just
Iran
regular
officially
missiles.
decided
They
not to
break
play
up.
at the ceasefire table, but immediately sent a message that was more convincing
Oh,
than
wow.
1,000 cluster bomb diplomacy.
Dang. Oh wow. Dang.
As a result, the head of Mossad intelligence was reportedly killed in a loud explosion on the northern border.
Oh.
Meanwhile, the Israeli prime minister only suffered minor injuries and national level trauma. The incident occurred when a high-level Israeli security delegation was conducting a surprise inspection of a command post that had recently become the target of a drone attack.
Hmm. Like they was waiting on it.
Unexpectedly, the sky above the area turned into metal rain after the radar system detected several small objects that were too late to be identified as Iranian-made cluster bombs.
Hmm.
The brutal explosion ripped through the bulletproof vehicle in seconds, killing the Mossad chief on the spot.
Hmm.
He was reportedly in the front seat without having time to get out of the vehicle. The prime minister, who was in a separate car, was only affected by the shock
Oh
wave.
wow. They was man. They
He
don't
was about to
do
make a
bump.
call and reportedly needed an IV and 2 sessions of spiritual counseling.
Hold up. So Iran, that's a hit. They put a hit down. That wasn't no random nothing. You the reporter, you doing your job, but you missing the specifics that only the hood can bring the sauce. They playing games, family. Real talk. Think about it. He targeted that man. That was no random bomb just dropped. And think about it. You had the prime minister and you had the leader of their hit squad, like the leader of the CIA. or whatever, Mossad, stopped the commander. They hit him while they was on a mission, and the prime minister was following. Family, that was a hit. It's done got real over there.
Iran had previously stated openly that they would not sign any ceasefire before Israel stopped all forms of aggression in Gaza.
Mmm. Mmm.
Now the statement has proven to be more than just rhetoric.
Yeah, they
They
already
did
know.
not come to the negotiating table.
They smell
They
blood.
came to the GPS coordinates and blew up an important department. We do not have dialogue with oppressors who are shooting hospitals, an Iranian military spokesman said the day before the attack.
Mm.
Now, one by one, senior Israeli officials probably wish they had lined up visas to move to Cyprus.
Mm.
The political atmosphere in Tel Aviv suddenly turned into a mass farewell party.
Y'all see it?
The elites began to blame each other.
Man,
The military
Iran
blamed
ain't playing.
intelligence, the intelligence blamed satellite signals, and the satellites probably blamed God. Meanwhile, the people could only watch as their leaders went from being big shots to being victims of the domino effect of their own game.
Mm.
We didn't expect Iran to be this brutal, a defense analyst said on national TV.
Man.
Well, of course, because they had always thought Iran was only good at making threats on Twitter.
Mm.
Now the news of the death of the Mossad chief is a major blow not only to Israel's intelligence agency,
Ooh.
but also to the morale of its entire security system.
Yeah.
Iran did not attack civilians this time. They went
Mm.
straight for the brains of the operation and succeeded.
Dang.
And
Them
that made the
people
Israeli
ain't
elites
playing,
go to
y'all.
bed faster and have darker dreams tonight.
Oh, what did you say? I don't know why y'all be saying that kind of stuff. Y'all need to chill with that. Well, Trump tried. They say talk shit, but he tried to get them to stop. Why they want to keep doing that, that's on them. Trump tried to stop it. I ain't with all that president stuff, politics stuff. Y'all know that, but somebody tried to talk to him. And like he said, they don't know what he go to evidence. Y'all talking about he said they don't know what the fuck they doing, like something wrong with that.
Cafe whose electricity had just gone out.
Somebody need to tell him. The hell Trump told him. China tried to talk to him. Can't nobody talk to Israel. I don't get that part. And then the world governments allow them just to do that. They sitting back, I think, especially the Arab nations, they probably have scared of them. They telling y'all, them ain't the original Arabs. Them they cousins. Them people are Turkic and Germanic tribes. Them brothers. Y'all gonna learn to believe the Bible one day. Well, we seeing it right now. And I sad to say, but Sister Celestial said all this. Didn't nobody believe her. He called her all kind of names, false prophets, this and that. But man, I bet you pay attention now.
The entire crisis protocol system was run, security codes were changed, and dozens of shadow agents were called back from abroad. Not for a retaliatory mission, but because they didn't know who to give orders to now. We lost a key figure in Israel's defense strategy, a high-ranking officer said in a hasty press release. But his face looked more like someone who had just lost their wallet and ATM card. Not just the boss. Israel is indeed known as a country with the most private
That camera
intelligence
on.
system in the
Don't
world.
walk past them.
But today they look like boarding school children who have lost their Wi-Fi. Without the Mossad chief, there is no coordination. Without coordination, there is no operation. And without operation, they are back to being a country with many weapons but no direction. Meanwhile, the Israeli PM who survived the explosion incident is guarded tightly 24 hours a day. Even by a personal bodyguard who had previously been fired for being too fat. All were called back. When it's like this, all hands are needed. Even the hand that used to hold the donut, said one of the staff members with a tense face. Iran itself has not directly claimed responsibility for the attack. But the message from its semi-official media and military channels is clear.
We did not attack the people. We eliminated the leader who attacked the people. That is enough to make the entire Israeli security structure go into 300% paranoia mode. The conversation in Knesset has shifted drastically from how to win the war to how to keep each other alive until next week. Some members of parliament have even reportedly requested emergency diplomatic passports not for official travel but for quick evacuation if necessary. On the other hand, the Israeli public is beginning to realize that the narrative of our quick victory may be empty optimism. When the most important figure in their spy world can be killed without warning, people start to wonder. If the head of Mossad can be trapped, what about us who only have ID cards and small dreams? We are not fighting a shadow organization. We are fighting a state that knows who we are. Where are we and how can we explode from the inside? Quote, said a former general in an interview on night TV. Unfortunately, the statement actually caused the shares of the Israeli bunker company to rise 60%. When news of the death of the Mossad chief spread, the world immediately stopped for a moment. Not because of mourning, but because of shock. It turned out that Israel could also get its turn. Usually the news from this region is filled with victims in Gaza, missiles in Rafah or Israeli fighter jets accidentally dropping bombs on people's homes. But this time one of the intelligence commanders was eliminated. Washington immediately held an emergency national meeting. Not to defend Israel, but because they didn't know what to say to the public after billions of dollars in aid weapons failed to detect Iranian cluster bombs. A senator even reportedly said behind the scenes that if this was an advertisement, their defense system should be withdrawn from the market. The President of the United States still issued standard statements such as "We stand with our ally Israel," but his face during the speech looked like someone who was forced to attend an ex's birthday. Empty, bland, and full of regret. In Europe, the reaction was more honest. France expressed deep concern, which in diplomatic language actually means "wow, finally someone responded, huh?" In Arab countries, TV screens turned into parties. In Yemen, Lebanon, and even Iran itself, small celebrations emerged spontaneously. Starting from the distribution of free food to large murals that read, "This is the ceasefire that we respect," the explosion version. Russia.
You gotta ignore some shit. People look for you to jump into something where they know you don't fuck around in the world anymore. It'll be easy to just, you know, no, we will hold your peace.
Continue. And their African countries are busy distributing one viral entry. Most down, please restart Tel Aviv. The UN also held an emergency session, but as usual, the result was only a long sentence without meaning. We call on all parties to exercise restraint. Even though everyone knows that one party has been restraining itself for quite a long time until finally releasing missiles as a form of greeting. Interestingly, many international media have started to change the narrative. If previously the news always started with Israel being attacked after blah blah blah, this time many immediately said that Iran responded to the relentless attacks on Gaza with a surprising step that killed an important Israeli figure. In translation, the world is starting to get tired of pretending to be neutral. Raven Square suddenly turned into a mass confessional, where thousands of people gathered while shouting, "Dissolve the government and return our children from the battlefield." Some even carried banners that read, "We are not human shields for the egos of failed leaders." The Israeli prime minister who survived the explosion no longer looked like a strong figure. His face looked more like a restaurant manager who just found out that his chef ran away on New Year's Eve. He held a press conference, but his voice sounded shaky like a walkie-talkie with only one bar left on its battery. We will conduct a thorough investigation and respond with full force, he said. But the people watching were more focused on the fact that the Mossad boss had just been killed in a bulletproof car. Even though they were promised God-level national security. Within the ruling party, the chaos was hotter than a restaurant kitchen at iftar time. Several members of parliament began to defect. Some openly called the PM the main responsibility for the intelligence lapses. Even the defense minister was said to be secretly planning a constitutional overthrow of power, aka a coup using a tie and meeting minutes. The military also began to show signs of frustration. Several commanders anonymously stated that political decisions complicated everything. We were told to win the war, but our eyes were blinded by stupid policies. It sounds like a dystopian movie cut, but this is reality. Israel is now like an army that has lost its map in the middle of a battle that it itself started. On the civilian side, the wave of trauma is growing. Many residents have begun to leave big cities, especially the northern regions where the sound of explosions is increasingly heard. Schools.
Read your Bible. God ain't protecting that land. Not doing what it's doing. How can God protect it? Wake up.
Are closed. The streets are empty and businessmen have begun to move their businesses to Cyprus, Dubai, even Istanbul. Basically the places that don't have sirens every morning. What's worse, the media local divided. One side is still forcing our narrative to be strong, offering to openly call the current government a broken GPS regime that is leading the country to plunge into the abyss. Israel, which was once known as a country with extraordinary resilience and sophistication, now looks like a technology startup that has just lost its main investor. Panicking, dizzy, and starting to look for scapegoats everywhere. After successfully hitting Mossad's head with a cluster bomb, Iran decided to take a break not because it was tired, but because it wanted to watch Israel burn from within. Instead of sending additional missiles, they sent a diplomatic letter. But the contents were like cynical poetry written on the ruins of Tel Aviv. In the letter, Iran expressed deep regret for the escalation that occurred. But the interesting part comes in the last paragraph. If you still want to have a dialogue, please make sure all your delegations are present in full, not exploding in the middle of the road. Chef kiss, cinder, and level. The letter immediately went viral not only in the media, but also in global diplomatic spaces. Several diplomats called Iran's move a God-level psychological blow. One physical explosion on the battlefield, another mental explosion at the UN table. Western countries began faltering. Several members of the European Union have openly advised Israel to reevaluate their military approach. The euphemism of already defeated but still honorable. The UK, which usually follows America, is now busy discussing the election. Canada is still busy making useless neutral statements. As usual, China and Russia are increasingly cheerful. Their strategic ally Iran has managed to shape the main axis of the Western Bloc without invading anyone. They just threw bombs at people who like to throw bombs first. We support the right of every country to defend itself, said China while drinking coffee, holding back laughter. In the Middle East, Iran's position has risen drastically. Resistance groups that previously only made noise have now begun to rise up armed. Hezbollah, High and Hamas have called the attack proof that enemies can be fought if they are patient enough and have the intention to hurt them back with precision. Israel itself is increasingly cornered. Its PM is alive but not leading. Its parliament is alive but attacking each other. Its military is complete, but it does not trust who gives the orders. Even the international media has begun to reduce the frequency of using the phrase self-defense for Israel and replacing it with responses that are not necessarily proportional. The map of power has shifted. The world now sees that for the first time in decades, Israel can not only be attacked, but can be slapped hard and still not know who to slap back. Iran doesn't need to send an armada. Just one cluster bomb, one diplomatic note, and one clear message.
Flies
If you
going
want
up
peace,
in here.
stop the war first. If not, get ready for a new version of airshot. Oh,
Wow, man, they send bricks through like
Feeling relieved after getting the
Wow.
opportunity made possible through medical devices
Great.
and automated laboratories, delivered with our knowledge
Playing
and
with y'all over
technology
there.
inside.
I think y'all might want to reevaluate y'all plan. It's real. Yeah, y'all can get more firepower and probably fight some more, but they can touch y'all. That's hard. All right, y'all. The I gave Israel. Man, that's crazy. How you get them? Somebody should get them to go ahead to keep. You need to get them to go ahead to sit their ass down somewhere. That's about it. Fix their nation. And with that, y'all, be prayerful and watchful. Because that shit gonna hit American shores too. You can believe that. They'll tell you that bullshit. Iran, look, I don't trust none of them. They said the same shit about Israel. Look at Israel. It sure don't look like it used to be, and it never will again. They keep messing with them. It might not be there by the time they get through if they don't get this nigga out of there. Alright, y'all, peace. Ain't gonna be none of that land no more. Fucking with him. Stay on the phone.